minutes from March and May. If there's, we'll take approval or any discussion, or just, anybody's got?
So just to clarify, so May, we weren't able to have a quorum, so those are unofficial minutes, but we still figured we would record the meeting itself, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to our financial report. The balance sheet is in there. If anybody got any questions on that? About the only question I got, is everybody still up to date, Nicholas, as far as?
Yeah, looks like it.
Just wanted to know, so Nicholas and I did go through his budget this morning, the EDA budget, on expenditure side, so we're kind of looking at a few changes there, but, we did go through that this morning, so we'll have that in the council packet, or the EDA packet probably next month, a copy for you guys to take a look at, depending what your priorities are, so.
Sorry, would that be for, like, changes to, like, how we're allocating funds moving forward, or changes to, like, how the funds have been accounted for in the coding?
It'd be going forward till into
okay.
next year's budget, yeah.
Okay, got it.
So, for example, I talked with Nicholas a little bit about maybe increasing some of the advertising expense, reducing some of the other ones, so, just because of how we're allocating going into next year, so.
Sure.
Income statements in there, if anybody's got any questions on that?
And then you'll see the stable loans that we've done. We won't see any payments on those until December because of the 6-month deferment, so. And I think moving forward, we'll have the financial reports monthly in the EDA packets, just so it's easier to keep track of things, and you know, it's easier to remember month to month rather than quarter to quarter.
That was proof of that when I asked about the March meeting earlier, starting it, I forgot, cause it was so long, you know?
Sure.
So, okay, we have no questions on that. We'll move on to the strategic planning, the top 5 priorities review.
Okay, so, included in the packet is, an abbreviated list of everybody's top 5 priorities, just to shorten it up and make it a little easier to, digest. And then I've also created, key takeaways. So I kind of gauged what the most common responses were and where they were ranked on everybody's responses. And I kind of came up with ranked from highest priority at the top of the list to the bottom, what I interpreted the EDA's priorities to be based on everybody's responses. So we can discuss that, make changes. I guess the idea for today is to talk about these priorities, how we'd like to achieve them, and then at next month's EDA meeting, we can talk about a timeline for achieving these priorities, you know, which ones fall into the 1-year, 2-year, 5-year category.
Some of them look just like to be every year.
Yeah, oh, for sure, like business retention, and attraction, that's, you know, that's always happening. If a business came in, and asked, you know, I'm thinking of moving from Rochester, what do you got, you know, that's obviously that's kind of reactive, but there are also ways to be proactive.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it too, when I read through these, it was trying to identify exactly how to do them. You know, like, it's sort of it's a generic thing, business retention. Well, what exactly are we gonna do to retain those? The same thing, like, a couple people mentioned, you know, the downtown, you know, creating that Casson feel. Well, what is the Casson feel? You know,
It's hard to
we
identify.
we have a number of businesses downtown, not particularly unique, You know, some of them are like having a theater, like a small town theater, that's kind of a unique business, but, you know, hair salons, like, they're good businesses, but they're not a, like, oh, this is a Castle and Pride kind of thing, you know what I mean? And so we wanna create that, and then what we can do, working with the chamber, you know, I'd like to see us improve the relationship with the chamber in any way we can to collaborate with them, because they're the ones who are actually owning the businesses. If they're not willing to buy into that Main Street creation of a feel, like, and for example, if we propose doing some landscaping, you know, if we said, okay, we're gonna put, you know, flowers out, you know, flower pots or something to kind of make it that, you know, you got the flags out, which is nice, so when I look down Main Street, you go, okay, it looks sharp, it looks like quintessential Americana, you know, that kind of a feel, you know, I think somebody mentioned like an ice cream parlor on Main Street or something like that, and that's a kind of a attractive business. How do you support that? How do you attract that? So giving those specifics to him so that he can go, okay, I need to identify somebody who wants to open an ice cream parlor, get them a building, and that's where we come in to go, okay, can we backstop this so the person says, hey, I have an idea, but I don't really have the cash. My bank's only gonna give me X, Y, and Z, I need that. Yeah, financing on a business that's probably a little bit more high risk, you know, as opposed to something that we know. A hair salon, yep, they're gonna be fine, because it's a pretty straightforward business. Yeah, they sell startup costs, but you know what I mean? So that was kind of what I got out of it, is how do we translate some of these large scale ideas into things that he can tangibly work on, like he can go and recruit a specific business. But I mean, I thought overall, some of them are great, you know, like, one good thing is that, for example, Shopko, we know that's one that, you know, we're gonna put on our list because we'll be able to cross that off this year. So it's always nice to set some achievable goals too, like fill the Shopko or sell the Shopko. Well, gosh, at the end of the year, we can go, gee whiz, that got done, way to go there, you know, EDA, even if we didn't necessarily have a lot to do with it. We do know that that's supposed to close this week. That's the knowledge I have of it, is it's supposed to close. It's a group that's from Rochester, and they are, I think, looking at potentially subdividing the building. So I don't know exactly what's gonna be in there. I have, you know, that's, you know, we only have a tangent amount of involvement with that between them and their bank. But otherwise, so I think that's kind of what I wanted to get out of it, is how do we task our EDA staff properly so that they're doing what we specifically need to do, and then looking at the properties that the city has. For me, that south property on the southwest side of town, you know, if we were gonna do, for example, attracting a larger business, a commercial business, warehousing or skilled trades or something like that, plumbers, electricians, the concept of how are we gonna use that property? Because we don't have a lot of other properties that we own that are really feasible for use. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. So anyway, sorry about that, I'm going way off topic, but I just wanted to, because that's what, I mean, I see some really good things, we gotta kind of drill down and go, exactly what can he do? Who does he need to visit? Who does he need to talk to? Where are we gonna steal these from? You know, we're not looking at stealing a business from Byron. That doesn't really help us, because in reality, we're in the same boat as Byron. We're looking at Rochester and trying to go, okay, this guy owns a building in Rochester, he's tired of living in Rochester, or tired of having his business there, it's expensive, he thinks he can sell for more. We gotta get him to move here, give him some kind of tax incentive so that he'll build a building, bring some employees here, and then that helps us grow our overall base over time, so. Anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, it looked like everybody filled it out and had good ideas, so.
Yeah.
We got some mutual agreements on everything that the board wants, so it's gonna make it easier. Is there any more questions anybody has on that, or?
Well, that's kind of what our I mean, a big part of our meeting today is this discussion on this.
So what more do we?
So if you
So
do
I
have
guess we
questions or
could-
comments, we need to get those from you.
We could start, you know, working down the list on the key takeaways, and just, I guess, get everybody's ideas on how they think some of these priorities are achievable. You know, how do you, as the board, see small manufacturing, you know, or youth-oriented, businesses, you know, what kind of business industrial would you wanna see? If we did develop, you know, that property went after a grant to create a commercial park, you know, do we want to attract those trades like plumbing, or do we want warehousing, you know, is it just about the jobs, or do we want value-added businesses, that kind of thing?
Well, so I guess I'm gonna back up, 'cause I know I submitted when you put out your initial
Yeah,
request. I
so
don't
I
wanna,
drew yours from
I
that.
kind of wanna brag about that, so I am.
Yeah.
But,
We didn't notice.
No, but what I wanted to say was, that was, you know, I think for me, like, the COVID stuff has changed my feelings, to a certain degree, like, I would've put that on here. And, I mean, to me, that seems like the most immediate need right now. It's like the highest urgency, but probably, hopefully, not a super long-term, like, year after year thing that we need to do.
Yeah.
So I guess if, you know, and we did our short-term, we did the short-term interruption thing, which I think was good. I don't know how, or like what's happened, in the meantime, but, I feel like that was a good step. I guess if I was to say what I think the board should be focusing on more just immediately because of the urgency and the time sensitivity, would probably be determining whether or not the federal and state programming that's already been put out has been sufficient. You know, I think a big question that's gonna come into play for a lot of our folks is, because the uncertainty related to the, to forgiveness for PPP, we're potentially gonna end up with a whole bunch of folks with these chunky payments, or not. They may change the programming so that it is, so I don't know, that's one thing that I think is currently evolving, that's higher urgency than other things, just because it's special to right now. So I guess I would say that would be one thing to at least look at and decide if we need more or not, but I think that's something that deserves our attention, more urgently. But then after that, I agree, I think we need to drill down from kind of shifting from just identifying priorities to how do you actually do it in more tactical sense of implementation of our goals once we've identified what we wanna do.
Well, so when you're talking about the chunkiness of payments, so are you looking at, for example, having the EDA assume some of those loans?
I'm
And
not-
basically, you know, let's say you've got a payment that maybe the schedule isn't feasible for you to pay off over 5 years, you're saying that the EDA should buy out that loan and like pre-amortize it for somebody at 10 years and make the payments smoother, or is that what you're looking at, or what are you looking at?
For advocacy.
I wasn't, oh, sure, I guess I wasn't immediately thinking of that, cause I think the demand for that would outstrip our abilities.
Well, right, financially, right.
But, yeah, whether it be a advocacy thing right now, like, you know,
Reaching out
right, I mean,
to-
cause right now, the House has approved at least better forgiveness terms, over, but I just think the chunkiness is going to result, because essentially what was set up was you ended up with these loans based on payroll expenses. And, do I need more vocal variation?
I am
in my
sorry, no,
voice?
this thing does that once in a while, cough.
Okay,
I think she was cutting you off.
Well, I mean, so that's a question I would have,
Um,
is the EDA board comfortable assuming a larger portfolio of loans then too? Because
Right.
that's, you know, I mean, where I go to it is if they don't improve the program, you know, you're right now we have $60,000 where I could say, okay, you know, we could assume a certain amount of these and spread out the terms and create a larger loan portfolio for the EDA. That would require financial support, substantial financial support from the council, but it's possible, it's not impossible to do that. I don't know how many aggregate in town, do we have any numbers on any of that, in terms of how many people and how much has actually been in town?
With PPP, I don't think we've got.
Well, not so much the PPP, but I think he's talking about some of the other loan programs more so, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm talking mostly PPP.
Are you? Okay.
The reason being is, so the way the program was set up is you end up with, these payroll-driven calculations, but then the terms were such that they're amortized evenly over 18 months.
Okay.
And you know, 18-month, an 18-month term is not, I mean, it's
Not a
very
long
short,
period
it's
of
a short
time.
amortization, and you end up with these short, a short period of time with large chunky payments. Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's a cash flow concern in the immediate.
Especially if things don't come back as quickly as people are hoping, right?
Yeah.
So how many do you think are not gonna get forgiven this year? I know we have 62 people that we helped.
Yeah. Right.
And we fully expect that all 62 will be forgiven.
That's.
Because that,
Right.
in this immediate area where we do
Yeah.
our payroll work, we just don't see if they, assuming they give the information to the bank as we prepare for them, they should have it forgiven.
Right.
Yeah. I would say the same thing.
There's gonna be some of the self-employed who couldn't be open to spend, they got the
Right.
PPP loan early. Those
Yep.
are the ones that we're considering those two.
Yeah.
I think we've got to work around on that.
Yep.
And, cause they couldn't be open, so they didn't have the
Right.
bill expense, and then their
Yep.
2 months is up, their 60 days.
Right.
But that looks like it's gonna be extended.
Yeah.
So, I just would be curious of how many would, I see where you're going, there's gonna
Yeah.
be, I agree with you 100%. I think all of our other priorities kinda get slid to the side right now, and I think the best way to find out what people need is to go ask them.
Mhm.
You know, is to actually call them, go make a visit, I don't know, today going face to face, but call them and say, hey, you know, your business on Main Street, or your business on 14, or whatever it is in the city of Casson,
Right.
how are you doing? Are you gonna be okay to get reopened, or are you been open, but, you know, even some of the businesses, you know, I mean, I don't know, Jan, we're gonna see a trickle-down effect. We aren't gonna be as affected by it ourselves until second quarter, third quarter, where, you know, if we have businesses that we work with, we've got 5 or 6 that are now out of business and not coming back. So we're gonna lose that business just because of the trickle-down effect's gonna hit everybody over the next 12 months as they realize these things. So I think,
Yeah.
I see where you're saying, and maybe some people are gonna say, hey, I got stuck with the 60 days, I couldn't bring my people back, I couldn't open.
Right.
And I got this PPP loan I gotta pay back over the next 18 months. That's a specific need for that business.
Sure.
Maybe there's other people that need something, you know, I would say, ask, what do you need?
Right.
You know, what do you need, what would you could use from the E EDA?
If you didn't have payroll, I would ask, what did you spend it on?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask, 'cause if
I
you
was
had
gonna
the
say,
PPP money
I
and
can
you.
honestly say that I had a lot of businesses that, the bank called them, you need to file for this, and now they got it, and it's sitting in their checkbooks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And the two that we have that probably aren't gonna be forgiven, they have 100% of the cash flow.
Yeah.
They're just gonna take
Right,
it
and
back.
they'll just pay it.
So,
Yeah.
So you
let's pay
can
it back.
pay it back?
So I think you're
But not every business is gonna do that,
No,
which I
yeah,
understand.
I
but
realize
if-
that.
But then if you borrowed that and you didn't open,
Right.
then it shouldn't fall on others to bail you out if you.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we're gonna have to, if we do it, we gotta make sure, so.
And so maybe that's, you know, definitely.
Maybe that's number one.
Yeah, an actionable item that I can do, you know, in the next 3 months is a more in-depth survey of local businesses to ask, you know, have you taken any relief programs? If so, what they are, you know, how does it look financially over the next months, year for you? And then what,
They might,
if the
they
EDA,
would share that with you.
well,
Well,
they
they
might
might
not.
They might not, but it's public information.
But we can ask.
I don't even know if I would ask if they've taken any assistance, I would just ask them,
Yeah.
How is it
what
going?
do you need?
Yeah.
And if somebody
Yeah.
says, oh, I really need some help with this and this, then ask them, have you taken advantage of the PPP or the
Or if they
EIDL?
offer that information, then you'll know, like,
Right.
hey, I took out this PPP loan, I'm not really sure what to do with it. Maybe that they can just return it, maybe they don't really know all the rules.
Right.
And I think one of the things we could
They
do.
should.
One of the things we could do at media, as far as the board, is we could look at the ones that are paying us monthly for the revolving loans they got. And if they're struggling, if they couldn't open or whatever, we could look to see if we could help offset their
We
payments.
talked about that a little bit, but I think the idea would be, I mean, at a staff level, it was like, well, if they're still making the payments, do you open that door to that?
Right.
As opposed to them approaching, I mean, so
Right,
maybe
but-
me approaching them and saying, hey, do you want me to forgive half of this? Let them
Well, I didn't
approach
say
us.
forgive, I
and
just say we
you
could
know,
hold off if they got in a bind and couldn't
No,
pay
that,
the month.
right, I mean, it could work, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just one of those ones where like, you wait for them to come and say, well, I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this, and then say, okay, yep, we're gonna spread it over another 2 years or something, and, I don't know.
No,
But that's
yeah.
a good point, for
I would
sure.
wait.
And everybody's still current. right?
Current though,
Is that
so-
what you're saying?
which is good.
And I look at it as what Nicholas could do is we're basically doing a business survey looking out the next 12 months.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in business in the city of Casson, you have been in business in the city of Casson, we value your business, we wanna see you stay here. Some questions you can ask, how did the shutdown affect you? Were you closed completely, limited, or, no effect, a little bit inconvenience, but, you know, so then we get an idea, okay, 30% of our businesses had really no effect, 30% were hard closed, and then from there, where do you see business in the next 12 months? Are you gonna be employing the same number of people as you are today? Do you expect business to be up or down? Do you expect to need some type of, whether it's the EDA, but do you expect some other program that's become available to help you stay in business in the city of Caston?
I
like
really
that.
would like to see that business directory,
Yeah, and that's a way to achieve that
how
goal.
many businesses we have. And I'd like them categorized, you know, by the type of business or, you know, so that we can see where we're short.
The chamber has that, but that's only chamber members, right?
That's
And
exactly it.
and that doesn't
And
cover
we have
everybody.
another group, and I'm trying, what's the,
LPL?
we have the LPL, I never hear
We-
that mentioned.
Yeah, local business
You know,
leaders, yeah.
and we go to that, you know, I don't want to put our efforts into a paid, you know, not a nonprofit, Chamber's not a nonprofit, it's a business, so let's be, you know, supporting all of them.
Sure.
I agree.
I mean, I talk about that for, too, Secretary of State has some good stuff, you know, in terms of businesses like in-home daycares and stuff like that. Anybody that registers, we can get a good list of that, so.
Yeah, some of them, yeah,
businesses
they've got to
too.
register, so.
And you can sort that by zip code.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I've done that before, so.
Yeah, so you can get every
Gotta pay
business
for it.
registered. But then, I mean, I like Tom's idea, there's gonna be some need for that, but also other things. What do we,
Right.
I think that's the number one priority, find out, it's a great opportunity for the EDA to get on this, you know, who do we have in town that is in business? And what are they looking for? You know, 'cause we come up with all the best programs, but if,
Right.
then we go out and ask people, well, we
They're
didn't
not
really
gonna
want
use it.
that, we need
Right.
this, we're not gonna use it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess if there's ever been a time for a business retention study, I mean, now's the time, I suppose. So, 'cause I mean, essentially doing that, like the COVID-related check-in across the board, I mean, it does, in addition to allow, you know, it does end up handling a couple of our other goals, which would be, you know, as long as we,
Business directory,
yeah, if we document the name and number and contact, we can start a categorized list towards our business directory while working on this. And then also it's, I mean,
It does the communication part of,
communication and
so they know
business
we
retention,
exist and.
so.
but if we did, I'm really, we could use it for attraction too. If we made this an annual thing, where when you do talk to people the first time, we get this directory of businesses. We're gonna do an annual business survey every year, 6 questions, we'll just send you an email or call you or whatever it's gonna be. So then we can kinda publish that as an EDA. Cause if you're a business looking to find a community to come open your business center, buy a $250,000 piece of land to build a building on, it would really be helpful to know that, hey, this business community is pretty strong, and the people that are in business think the next year is gonna be just as good or better.
Well, and you'd also know if you have competition or not.
Yep, and know if there's a hole that you can fill. Maybe that's the business, and you're like, hey, this is the town for me, cause I have the business.
'Cause they don't
That
have
will
it,
fit.
yeah.
I think we can use that as the springboard into that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that one sounds good. So short term, we've got that one, what about long term?
Survive the next 12 months.
Yeah, well, and, you know, you gotta
What
look
does
at.
this board wanna do,
when-
though? That's the
when-
trick.
Yeah.
When you gotta look at what business, what'll help attract them or keep them, is there, you know, do we need housing, what do we need to help them? I mean, obviously,
All right. You know, is housing a priority for the EDA? Is that something we wanna get involved in, whether it's moderate or low income or anything like that? Do we wanna focus on other uses for property and things like that too, so?
Because right now, our involvement in housing, is very minimal, and it mostly relates to just abatement for certain developments that
Well,
people are interested
It's the
in.
chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
comes first, cause you wanna bring in that industrial manufacturing plant that employs 50 people, but there's nowhere for them to live.
right.
Do you build a place for 50 families to live and then hope the business come, you know, so it's one of those,
Well, and not necessarily does EDA need to be totally involved, but maybe just see what businesses are looking, do they need? And then, maybe then, if that information's out there, maybe there's other groups that, or developers that would look into it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with, yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing, 'cause if we had a business park here, it would fill up. I mean, I think that's pretty, I think with the economy, at least the way it's been, I mean, the question is, 'cause I mean, if I don't have anything ready, I can recruit a business till I'm blue in the face and say, oh yeah, I wanna come here, but it's gonna take me 2 years to build this.
To be shovel ready.
To go get a grant for, a deed grant for something to help pay for it, to get the financing together here, you know, to sign all the agreements with a tax abatement or a TIF fund, you know. Doing a TIF district is probably 3 months minimum too, because it needs all kinds of reviews and development. So I mean, you know, that, if you don't have anything, then I can't really promise anything either.
Right.
Well, yeah, we'll build it, you know, if we already had the thing in there, I don't know. I mean, but you
Yeah.
take the risk of being, that it may take 5 years for that to fill in too. So maybe you'll get one business and then it'll take a couple of years for the rest of it to fill in. I don't know. But what do you think? Smiling over there, Chris?
Oh, I'm just thinking of Byron's Business Park, how long that took to fill in.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure where
15
you're
years,
coming
probably.
from, but.
20 years, but I mean, things are different, it was just, when you said, it
Timing.
might take 5 years short, that's why I.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I
Sorry.
guess I would, and I base it off
Timing.
of the current situation, not how, what it was.
Yeah, no, I
You know,
was.
if the economy had been as strong when they built that, I suspect that it probably would've gone a lot
Well,
faster.
and then the industrial part goes back to if we know a business director, we know what's missing in town, people will know what, you know, if it's feasible even to even look at it, and we'll know we're short if it was to put it in the first place on our part.
So maybe we need this first step as far as this survey.
Yep, and then go from there.
And then that would help us direct our focus on the next one. I think that's
I
like,
agree.
that should be, right now, we need to find out, take the pulse basically of the whole Casson business community, because it's changed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a lot of people you wouldn't expect to, it's changed a lot,
Yeah.
so.
Start there and
Yeah.
bring it back and go to the next step, when we have more.
I mean, I guess if I was to say, you know, how do we wanna handle, like, long-term? Cause I think right now, I would prioritize our time towards just the urgency of figuring out what we're missing on the COVID, but for long-term, I guess I would wanna look at, the most effective or efficient places for us to consider, commercial development overlaid with our comp plan stuff. And I'd like to know kind of where, I think I saw later in the packet, we were gonna look at, certain, utility capacities. And I'd like to look at those metrics and are they matching up well with, the locations that we've identified, or would we have capacity issues
Yeah.
should the time come to develop?
Mhm.
Because I think, a lot of our, I think if we're talking commercial or industrial development, we're kinda looking, I'd guess, in our southwest, or southeast kind of quarter there, and the question is, I couldn't tell you what our utility capacity is. I mean, maybe it's really good, maybe it's not, I don't know, it's just, I don't know. So I think those are gonna be the kinds of things that we need to evaluate, just in terms of is the expense gonna be so great that, if we get a 50% BDPI for a speculative industrial park, is it gonna need to fill up in 3 years in order to make a cash flow on a TIF district, to make up the difference? Or is it pretty much the low-hanging fruit, and it's actually not gonna be, it'd have to sell, have, half of it fill up with tax base in order to cash flow it. I just, we don't know that until we know if there's capacity needs there, that would need to be rectified or not. So that'd be the first place I'd look for long-term. After that, I guess I would, I'd take a look at, kind of the next step would be, are we meeting the needs of, essentially like transportation connections, within and across the community, are we able to, what are our options as far as, I think about like we're kind of a segmented, like transportation-wise a little bit, like we have kind of like the north of 14 and south of 14, there's kind of a split, and then, and then there's a degree of a split kind of across 57 just by the nature of it. So I think we have certain projects that are already pretty well planned out that kind of help with that, like the roundabout and certain trails that kind of cross-sect to connect walking paths for sunset and sunrise. But those are all things I think that would be kind of later later stage long-term planning things that I would look at, and then how that, if we end up with our druthers and those things happen, what do, you know, are there certain high priority locations for, then the next phase of housing development, so that hopefully we have new, places for new employees to move into when we get our southwestern industrial park going. But I just start, I don't know, with figuring out, do we have the infrastructure capacity to handle those locations with those uses that we would like to see?
Yeah, and, I guess I can talk a little bit about that now. So I had a discussion with Will Wangren, the CP Rail Industrial Development Coordinator. And we talked about the rail line that bisects Casson, but I mean, I was looking at also in the context of Claremont, Dodge County, where would be ideal places for industrial or commercial development as it relates to rail. And that discussion kind of led to me thinking, you know, we need to identify the capacity for any of these developments, whether they're related to rail or not. So I've started collecting metrics, you know, from the city for sewage and water capacity. We're working on electrical capacity. I'm also working with the county on this, the zoning administration there, to identify ideal parcels with GIS, and then looking at where they relate to the major transmission lines, gas lines, and then I'll go out to the utility companies and say, I know you've got a line here, and we've identified the property here. What is that line's capacity, and also what is your capacity to build out to that property if it was ever developed? And I can also do that in Casson's case in tandem with the comprehensive plan. You know, we've identified these areas for commercial development or industrial development in our comp plan. You know, what is your ability to service that area when that development, when we're ready for that stage? So, yeah, that's just kind of a high level look at what that project is.
Yeah, so I guess I mean, like, I think it would be valuable to see essentially like a map of our, you know, these like potential areas and kind of what the respective capacities are. I'd say, in my mind, that seems like if we were to get that map by, say, like.
So exactly what are you looking for on the map? Because if you
Sorry.
go to the, you know, the city's
Yeah.
GIS page,
Mhm.
it does show all the interconnections for electrical and water and sewer and things like
Sure.
that. The capacity numbers is definitely something you can get together. You know, that's something we had talked about
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So what else would you be looking for on the map, aside from what's already on the comp plan?
Sure. I think for me, it's more packaging it so that if I was a developer, I'm just imagining a scenario where we have a developer saying,
Okay,
I have
sure.
I need this kind of facility, I need to build it in this time frame, looking for, you know, these infrastructure connections, whether it be like, gas, electric, water, sewer hookups, I need to be adjacent to rail, and I need to be, you know, this close to a 4-lane highway. You know, essentially having that information, you know, because I think a lot of times we have the data, right, it's all out there, it's not packaged together for the developer, and maybe it's pretty much all just about ready to go, but I'd say it'd be nice to be aware as a
I think that's right, you know, that's one thing I talked about, like advertising more, is you wanna have the package, so if you do advertise, if someone does solicit an interest, then you can say, well, here's our packet of what we
Right.
can provide, where the connections are. I
Yep.
mean, if we're talking about in Southwest, potentially commercial business park, you know, I know there's a secondary commercial sector that's planned for kind of the Northwest too, by the high school potentially. You know, those are definitely things we could sell to people then, so that's a good point.
So, I guess I'd say I would prefer to see that, you know, like a draft package like that with, you know, essentially like the mapping, like the metric data and all that,
Yeah.
like, I'd say if we got that, a couple, you know, if we deal with COVID stuff, and then, you know, 4 months down the road, say, before the end of the year, like in 2020, we get that kind of like the final version of that package done, I'd feel pretty good about that, so long as we had taken the time now to prioritize, time around making sure we're taking care of our folks here and now, and identifying their needs. And if we get into it, we find out there's huge and diverse needs, due to the COVID stuff, and we, reevaluate and say, you know what, let's get this done, and let's hold off a little bit on our package. I think that would be plenty realistic scenario too. But if we get into it and everybody's like, actually, we're pretty good, I'd say, well, let's dive head first into the package. I don't know, that's my take, my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I could agree with Tom on that. As long as this immediate thing is taken care of first. I really want people to, when you're talking to them, to really be thinking 6 months and 12 months ahead. Because I really don't think we've really, that a lot of people have really started to feel the pain yet.
Right.
From the after effects of this, and, you know, there's a lot of people that are furloughed right now. That's a great word for you might not come back at all. That in a month or two might find out furlough is permanent, and the extra unemployment's done. And because it was, we can judge the federal government all we want, but I'll tell you that the stimulus package that's been put out so far for working with the IRS like we do, actually happened pretty quickly to get that much money into people's hands immediately.
I think you're
I'm
right.
still waiting
I don't
for a
think
refund
people
from
have
the
really
state
seen
5 months ago, we can't get that.
Yeah, I don't think people have really seen the impact. You probably won't see it.
I just don't think, I don't think the pain is really, I mean, it's there, don't get me wrong, I don't wanna say it, but the overall pain of what would happen if they wouldn't have given the extra $600 for unemployment, and there wouldn't have been a $1,200 stimulus.
And you know.
I think a lot of it went to people who didn't need it.
That's a whole nother.
That's another story.
That's a
yeah.
whole different
Well,
debate.
You know,
we just
and-
can't, I don't wanna, follow in their path, just let's give out money.
Right, no, but they did it pretty quickly, so that's what I'm just, some
Yeah,
of
they
the folks,
did it
when it
very
runs
quickly.
out, it's gonna be painful, and they don't realize that yet.
Yeah, or they don't realize that then if they've been getting extra money, they got extra taxes.
Well, they realize
That's gonna
they
sneak up on
don't
them,
go back to work.
you know, some of them are gonna be a little surprised.
Okay, so what I'm taking away from this conversation is immediate needs first, business, directory, things like that, getting a good handle on where it is right now over the next month. And then coming back and, seeing how that is in a month or so, hopefully we can get that information to you. And then developing this potential package if things are stable enough now, that we can potentially sell that to somebody. Things to keep thinking about. I'm not trying to take over here at all, Dan,
No.
I wanna make sure that staff is directed and we're
Yes.
clear about where we wanna go with things, so we don't have any questions later. Is there anything else, immediately that anybody else has thoughts on? One thing I really wanna know is, what is the cash and feel, because I hear that from people, like, so what does it mean to be here, like, what is that? Some towns just have that kinda civic pride, kinda, okay, our high school's the Beavers and everything's the Beavers, and it's all marketed that way, and so that's the thing too, that we wanna kinda get an idea of, because this town has grown a lot, and that is good in a way, but it's also tough in a way, because some of those older things that people used to celebrate more, new people that move to town don't care about it all. So we wanna try and bridge that gap between new people that are gonna keep coming, and also protecting and helping support our traditional, folks who've lived here for 20 or 30 years, so.
Back to that high school, our high school is Casson Manaville. And I think that's one of the things that we've tried for 4 years, to get these people that live in these two separate towns together beside, and I don't know, the kids seem to work it out, but the adults, what is it?
Hatfields and McCoys, yeah.
Yep.
Just the Hatfields.
And we're only that far apart anymore.
I don't get it.
Right. I mean, that was one of the first things I talked about with Nicholas when I first started in the month, was I said, why don't they have a combined chamber? Or a combined, there are a lot of things that, it's tough. But, anytime we can collaborate, we want to, because really, in the fullness of time, it's one community.
And it did help that the school, Casson and Manaville, worked together on group ventures and stuff, but, so it's a start, but we need more.
For 4 years, the kids work together, they have all the things.
Huh?
Part of that, Tim, with your point, what's the Casson feel, the Casson feel is, we all have different feels, right? But this COVID thing's really presented a big opportunity, I think, for small businesses, especially retail businesses, to really use their marketing, and maybe the EDA could kind of pick up on this if we're gonna do marketing, to really use what people said on social media for 60 days, to ask them to put their money where their mouth is. Because how many people posted, remember that small business that donated to your
Yeah.
kid's soccer game? Remember when they opened, we gotta support them. Well, just like Main Street and everything else, you know, I think my take for 20-some years here now is that the majority of people like the idea of a great Main Street and a lively Main Street, and they want the little shops, but then the practice of supporting them is different. You know, it's like everybody, you know, big business comes to town and puts little business out of business. No consumers put businesses out of business, because the big company didn't come to town with a tank and tell everybody they had to come shop there.
Right.
They came and offered products and services, and people chose to shop there. So,
Yes.
I think some of the advertising for small retail shops especially is, hey, we appreciate all the sentiment and words of support.
Now
Now it's time to see you put your money where your mouth is. Are
Yeah.
you really willing to go to that small shop, whatever it is, and pay 30 cents more for that product because they do donate to your kid's soccer team? Or was it just a really nice thing to say online, and now I'll just continue to go to the big shopping center?
And I think that's something the EDA can definitely cultivate more easily, is like the small business Casson feel, rather than the feel of Casson overall. And talking with the businesses over the next month or two through this survey, you know, maybe we can identify some avenues that the EDA wants to highlight.
Does Manorville have an EDA?
They do.
It's not just the county EDA, it's
No,
Manorville.
it's Manorville EDA, yeah, they're
Okay.
CETA staff.
Could we meet together with them sometime?
We've talked about it, but the Manorville EDA, you know, it's like you were saying before, they're focused on Manorville, right? You know, that's their focus. Why do they wanna partner with Casson? But there might be some opportunities. We've discussed it, me and my CETA colleague, but, we've maybe started talking about that 3-4 months ago.
Well, let's
Things
see
are
what we can
hit
do
and miss.
about it.
Yeah.
I think,
It goes right back to what Chris said. You need the community to want the business to be here to step up and support them. You know, I mean, if they say that you go out and put on social media that we're all about backing you, we'll do this, and then when they reopen, you need to go there and show your support, so they can stay here and give back to you.
Mhm.
How do you get that across? I don't know, that's not.
But that's totally different than Casson and Arrow getting together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can certainly pursue that, you know, and what I'd like to do is maybe informally request that to them. So why don't we try that, and if they just say no, then, that is what it is, we did our best.
Well, one thing about it is that we don't actually compete. I never felt that Manorville and Casson compete. And the thing of it is that we'll get more people to stay here, to shop here, to come here to shop, if we can offer more things. So we need to work together, because they do have that quaint, you know, whatever, but, you know, I've always thought of Casson as commercial. Hey, we're the hardware store, you know, we're commercial lumber, blah, 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 but we need to figure out how to help each other out, support each other. You know, the bigger we are, I think the better we are.
I think like so first going back to the local shopping thing, I mean, depending on our budget, we could order cloth masks that say shop local in blue and white across the face and mail it with everybody's utility bills, and there you go. I mean, then you'll be wearing that around, you know,
Yeah.
like that. If that doesn't remind you to shop local, then I guess I don't know what will. Anyways, that's one thing. Second, you know, the only thing about that is, I mean, you're talking probably about $19,000 to send out enough for every person in town. But anyways, that's one option. Second would be second thing about the kind of the connection, the cohesion. I mean, I think there's essentially a starting point would be to talk about a somewhat cohesive aesthetic, and then secondly, partnering to more or less, have signage directing people to things in one town to the next, you know? Like if we have a thing saying, you know, go that way for, you know, Hubble House and quaint things, and then they have signs saying, here's the, you know, go aquatic center, hardware store, what, you know, like whatever, whatever that signage is, but, I think if you know, if you talk about some level of, hey, let's, you know, we both kinda have a limestone thing going on, let's talk, you know, is there a way to create, you know, to create cohesion in the aesthetic, and then secondly, you know, be it through landscaping or whatever.
And they're the
then
bike trails.
signage, and then the next thing would be signage and stuff, just identifying, go this way for these restaurants and shops, go this way for these restaurants and shops, and, essentially, offer to kind of match each other in signage.
Mhm.
So that'd be the starting point I'd start
Yeah.
with.
Well, and I can let them know that we're doing this kind of business survey, and maybe I can share, you know, the questions that I would be asking of our businesses, and then maybe they can conduct something similar. You know, and that can definitely help get things on the right way too.
Okay,
All right.
very good. Next up, I think you've got some email or some website updates
Yep.
there, anything with that?
So, just to show everybody, what I've done with the website, I've added our subcommittees, and then, I've also added some other sections that you can click further into, doing business in Casson, and then Casson EDA in the community. So a lot of these Casson programs, I've included what the city has on offer for businesses, and then I've also included the regional programs and resources. And then in a separate tab, I did the state resources, and federal resources and programs for businesses, so that, you know, if you're ever wondering, looking at Casson for a business, and then maybe you wander onto our EDA webpage, then you can look through all of these and be like, oh, well, this made it a lot easier because I found this program, and that actually could work well for my business. One thing I forgot to include, because I meant to take a photo that didn't turn out well, is the Casson in the EDA community. That just shows some photos of projects that the Casson EDA is being involved with. So right now, it's got the Trail Creek Coffee sign, it's got the Erdman's County Market. I tried to take a photo of the new
landscape beautification.
the new landscaping, but I just, on my phone, it didn't look like you were looking at anything, so, maybe if there's like a satellite image I can end up getting from the county that shows a neat visual of what was put in, so, we've got that.
Well, I like all those different programs, there's stuff on there that people might not even know existed.
Is this on, is it GovOffice, or what type of web platform are we using?
It is GovOffice. I haven't really paid attention to what kind of platform it is, I just know how to work it.
I was wondering if it was GovOffice. I was wondering if, 'cause I think, I'd gone on there 'cause I was, looking for our, facade program application.
Mhm.
And I think, if it was, 'cause I think GovOffice has, well, there should be a way to have some of these, 'cause I really like the links. I do think the links, if possible, should be either farther up, or possibly even, I think as like a sub, you know, you can create kind of like sub-pages off of other sub-pages, so like Casson EDA could have its own next set of sub-pages after that in GovOffice, I think.
Well, we kind of do for the doing business.
Yeah, so I guess the thing was, like when I go on, you know, usually, like, I'm expecting, the high priority things to be like immediately on my screen. It's
Mhm.
just kind of, I call it Twitter syndrome.
Sure.
And so like I pull it up and and ultimately I have to scroll down, you know, to hit the links. Small deal, but it's not, usually people like aren't necessarily quick to scroll down, even no matter how easy it is. So I guess I'm just thinking like the high priority stuff, which I think is probably our program links that you've, done a really nice job with. If there's a way to highlight them more so that they're more immediate.
Sure.
Then that's even better.
Yeah, like I could move the doing business and Casson links and that sort of stuff, above the EDA board list, and then I could expand on that little italicized line there. You know, a guide to local and regional programs and resources, you'll find the Casson Business Facade Improvement Program materials here, and that sort of stuff, so I could definitely change some of those, and, yeah, you know, with make the most important stuff that we want people clicking on at the top. I can also take a stab at reworking that, you know, Casson EDA blurb. I don't know if we need that whole thing. It could maybe even go in its own sub-link where it's like what the EDA is about, and then we put that kind of storyline in there, so.
Yeah, I think, the more, GovOffice has there's some channel, you know, like if you wanna switch more to like in order to make things more intuitive, a lot of times like more of like an icon-based,
Mhm.
Categorization thing, is helpful. GovOffice has there's a little bit of a struggle, I think in GovOffice to be able to do a clean-looking version of that.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, the more that direction, I guess, we can go within the bounds of what our technology allows us to do, but,
Yeah,
it's,
icons would be good, so I can maybe
yeah.
take a look around the web editor and maybe reach out to GovOffice and ask, is there a way that we could set something like that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as long as we have the correct permissions, I think you can have like images that are hyperlinked,
Mhm.
that just look like icons and do it that way. But, like I remember way back when for whatever reason, we were seated and we were contracted to do like it was like give them suggestions to like the city of Northfield's website. And they were super text heavy, and it made it, as an outsider just coming in, it made it really challenging to figure out what they wanted me to know, I guess. It was like their information wasn't, it was just a lot.
Sure.
And which made it harder to navigate. And so we were looking, and it seemed like if you looked at kind of like real high level, kind of like the direction, like some of like the real big, I remember like spending a lot of time like on New York City's webpage, and it was definitely like a far more like intuitive, like icon-based system, and just kind of the concept of consolidating information to kind of direct you through, kind of almost like a prioritization tree, like through images, and then more like bullet point fashion stuff to get you to the data you were looking for.
Yeah.
Was helpful.
I can look into it.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of awesome information in here, and I think this is, which I think is great.
You gotta make it pop and simple, because you gotta dig through pages to get some, people are gonna quit.
Mhm.
Cause they'll get frustrated, they'll like, where did I click on it the last time I was here? You gotta make it to the point.
Yep.
Which I like how you got all these on the sides, you can click on the programs and they're all there.
Mhm.
Instead of looking through pages. So, because that's what.
Coordinators report. So I spoke with some people, Allison Wagner, Jana Monosmith. They were interested about the short-term business interruption loan program, so I talked about how that worked, and they've been implementing similar programs in their communities based on ours. I already talked about my meeting with Will Wangerin. We had the CEDA virtual annual meeting. I met with Jerry Geese of CARE to help work on their grant application for a new roof on the historic public school. And then I've been just having economic development professional meetings where we, discuss what we've been dealing with in our communities and what some of the solutions we've been implementing are. So we haven't had any other loan applications for the stable program, but that's something based on like the survey answers, maybe we can adapt that program to meet the needs, because the needs of COVID will be changing. They're not the same as they were 2 months ago as they are today. So that's something to always keep in consideration. We've worked on the EDA strategic plan, talked about the webpage, completed the deed subsidy reporting for Casson.
Is that something EDA does?
Yeah. So any government entity that represents, I think, about 2,500 people has to report any business subsidies they've given out.
Oh.
But it's gotta be above like $125,000 subsidy, so for
Yeah.
us, it's nothing.
Okay, I thought that was.
And if you don't report, you're not allowed to give out subsidies, so it's just.
We just report zero and
Yep.
move on. Yeah, okay.
I'm beginning to work on a Minnesota Historical Society grant for $10,000 to help finance the restoration of the WPA wall, at Veterans Memorial Park. The deadline for that is July 10th, so, just been kind of working on some of the stuff. Got the grant open and ready, I just need to start adding some of the details. So I'll be working on that. Utility metrics collection, we talked about that a little earlier, so I think just identifying what our capacity is, where the good sites are, and then packaging that so that it's easy to digest for any interested parties. And then Tim wanted me to add the Smith Paint the Town grant, if there are any ideas for this grant in town. I know Janice, you're gonna be painting that fence, so I don't know if this is something that we could apply for, to help pay for the
I
paint.
think we'll be able to pony up the money.
Okay.
I would say, I would like to get a grant though, because, those windows on the old school, they've become weathered, and, they've washed off most of the paint.
Mhm.
And we've thought about, repainting those windows if we can. I don't know that we'll go with the prison concept with the black windows.
Yeah.
But we'd like to find something that we could, so, yeah, I mean, we could try to get that in.
Yeah, and I don't think the grant is too intensive, so
Okay.
if the CARE comes up with, a plan to paint those windows, then I can
Yep,
help
we're
get it.
actually having a meeting on Friday.
Oh, perfect, so that lines
So-
up with this grant deadline, so
Yeah.
if you wanna move forward with that, then
Sure.
we can talk about helping get the paint.
Deb Wilson pretty much does our grant writing, so.
Just one thing to know as you guys are talking about painting the windows is, cause I don't know exactly what you mean by that, like, they do want, do they allow you to just do like any paint for a historical structure?
I believe so, it's not like you need to paint a mural on the.
Right, cause
historic-
usually it's
Yeah.
like more of like an artistic thing, but
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't sure if it was different.
No, I think it's stuff like if you've got, shutters on like a historic building that need to be painted, it's that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I guess if we're, I don't know if do we have any other things we wanna paint?
I reached out to the school, when this grant deadline first came up, before they extended it, he said, that was Mark Latuska, he said he was gonna look into it, but I haven't heard back, so I can always reach out to him, but it's hard to say, with no students there and
Right.
getting them to congregate, it might not be, something they wanna be doing right now, so.
Could do some of those, probably after the 57 reconstruction, we could paint some of those like 3-dimensional crosswalks, know, so like it looks like in Iceland, if you've seen those pictures, it looks like the crosswalk blocks are like floating in the air. So it slows cars down.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at it for next year too.
Yeah.
I just figured they opened it up
Yeah.
again, so we take a look, so.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting.
Okay. Well, that's under the coordinator, we'll move on to other business, the EDA board seat.
You've got a memo in there, and I think Nicholas and I were just looking for some direction from the board, and if you'd like us to reopen that, or the mayor, where he's at with that, so.
As far as recommending someone to the council, I wasn't comfortable recommending any of the three that you had, so if you wanna reopen it, that's fine, but I wasn't comfortable.
All right.
So is that the board's direction, then, to reopen that?
Sure. Yeah.
I would think.
And if those last applicants want to reapply,
Well, if the mayor wasn't comfortable with them before, I
Right.
suspect he probably won't be comfortable with them.
I
this time,
know.
so.
Cause it ultimately comes down, it's the mayor's decision on appointing, so all we can do is
They all
recommend.
contact me if they have any questions, but I'm not gonna recommend any of the three that applied.
okay. So
Sounds
if
good.
they,
Okay.
if they apply, I can just.
Yep.
I don't think that we actually got a lot of, we have a board seat available,
Right.
you know, so I do think that that would be, you know, something we need to get the,
Put out there.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
need to, get that to, our business community.
Yeah, and maybe the chamber could email out the posting or something like that.
Could
Or
I can't remember if
LPL.
I
Just put the word out and
Yeah, we'll put it on Facebook and
we'll move forward.
put another ad in the paper maybe.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Then, on the below it says June EDA, but it's July EDA. The biggest thing is,
I don't-
would we have a quorum here on July 7th? What is people's?
I'm gonna be out of town.
Yep, I knew that.
Yeah, that's just it.
Okay.
The question was, do we have a quorum for July 7th?
Do we?
I should be here.
Okay.
You two, either one of you gonna be available July 7th for the next EDA,
Or not,
or not? Yeah, that's our question.
July,
I'm available.
you said July
Seventh.
Seventh?
Seventh.
I mean.
So it's the Tuesday after.
It's Tuesday after the
4th
4th, but I didn't know if people's, summertime. We
Right.
just wanna look
Yeah.
to it now before we even start making an agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm doing anything, I will be, I'll be gone for the September meeting for sure. We're having a baby on August 24th, so we'll be, the first week I'm just planning to be gone.
On or around August 24th.
He's a banker, he's got it lined up right on that day.
Yeah.
Induce if you don't.
Yeah,
So-
on or around.
All right, so
On
as of,
or around.
sorry. So as of now, we'll assume we have a quorum. If it changes,
Move
let
forward
Nicholas
with
or,
it.
know, just so we know.
I can check in like maybe 2 weeks before the meeting too and see where people's schedules are at.
And then if you got any ideas of what you would like on the meeting, Nicholas come up with some more ideas on our, what we just
Just follow up on.
what we
Yeah.
gave them, and, yeah.
Yeah, I think, follow up on the
Quite a bit to do.
the
Yeah.
COVID detention visit.
Yeah.
visits.
That'll,
Formulate
yeah,
a survey.
that'll be a good start. Hearing nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now I getting your tan on there, huh? You got some lawn work this weekend, huh?
No.
No?
Thanks.
Yes. Oh.